Well, Nigel, can we start with some positive news for City fans today? Chris Martin extending his deal at Ashton Gate. Was it an easy decision to award him a new contract?
Well, it's actually triggered by his appearances. So I'm delighted. I mean, look, one of the things that we try and factor in or make a part of people's contracts is, especially as players become more senior players, so to speak, that the extra years triggered by a number of appearances, and that's something that's pretty common in football. But as I spoke to Chris early in the season, and I'm delighted that he's staying, because he's somebody who's very reliable for us, and it's at the moment with where we are with our squad, it's good to have a few reliable players, because that's been one of our problems this year, is not having enough consistency. So Chris earns his contract, and that's how it should be in football. I think it's players earn the right to extend the contract, and I think that's a very positive thing for him, and it's a positive thing for us.
He's a striker, and of course you want goals from him, but what else does he bring to the side? I suggest, how much has he helped Antoine's progression this year? And in the press release, you also mentioned his defensive work as well, maybe stuff that goes unnoticed by supporters.
Yeah, I think undoubtedly Antoine has progressed, firstly because he's playing more central this year than he last year. We played him more as a wide striker. He's made developments in himself. He plays with players who again create opportunities for him. So our front three, if you like, Andy, Chris and Antoine, are all their involvements in our goals, either scoring or creativity, are very high, all three of them. So we are. Antoine's made good progress himself, yes, but he's a part of a attacking trio which has worked very well together.
Is the glass half full with Joe? Obviously, it was a worry when he went off on Tuesday. 2 to 3 weeks. Just tell me a bit more about the injury and why perhaps it's not as serious as previous ones.
Because it's not the tendon, so it's a part of the hamstring. But and it is. Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Joe, he pulled up pretty quickly. So, we're just pleased. Say pleased for him. There's a bit of relief that it's not going to be it's not going to be something that potentially finishes his season. So it gives him another. It's a setback for him, of course, but it's part and parcel of his road to recovery. I'm afraid it's our intention was not to use him so early, but I'm afraid in the when games are going on, you can't account for how other players, whether they are able to stay on or not. So Alex Scott's early injury in the game meant that, unfortunately, Joe was needed.
How do you view Joe's road to recovery, and are you confident, is he confident that there'll be a situation in the future where we're not worrying about him suffering a hamstring injury every few weeks?
Yeah, that won't be this season though. So I would suggest that between now and the end of the season, when he's back, he won't play midweek games. So he'll be up for consideration from week to week, but not probably in midweek squads. So you've heard that from me now. Whether that transpires to be the case, but that is something that I think will minimise the risk further.
And you mentioned Antoine and Alex okay for the weekend. Any of your injured players back for Saturday, or realistically, are we waiting to the international break?
We'll have to keep an eye on Alex Scott. He's been out on the field today. We'll see how he is. Antoine's was just cramp at the end of the game, so he'll be okay. Eamon and Max have been absent with COVID, but Max is back outside today. So, we still follow COVID protocols here, even though things have changed in the wider world. It's important for us to still follow protocols which minimise the risk for the greater group, if you like. So players who test positive, we wait until they post a negative test before they're allowed to come back in. So Max was out there today. Eamon will be potentially out on the field tomorrow. So we just have to see how they are. Whether they're able to be a part of Saturday will remains to be seen.
With every problem, there's a solution. How big a challenge is it to improve defensively, and in particular defending set pieces?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we don't have reliable markers. So we might have to find a different solution. Players are unable to stay with the man that they're designated, which is been a huge problem for us. So unfortunately, we may have to look at a different solution, and that's what we are working at the moment.
Does that irritate you when that you have a solution, you have something that you want to do and it's not being carried out, so you have to think of a plan B, a plan C?
No, that makes it sound as though I'm apportioning blame I'm trying to find something that our players can deal with, rather than, we have, you asked about Chris Martin. Chris Martin's probably our most reliable defender, which is, I'm sure the centre-backs won't be particularly pleased for me to say that, but that's the reality of the situation. And so we've had defenders who have been culpable at various stages during the season, where they've not been able to deal with their designated man, and that is, and sometimes it's been a forward, but we concede far too many goals from if you like the centre of the penalty box, because we don't or have been unable to deal with our opponents. So it's a frustration, but what you can do is work at it and try and find a different way of dealing with it.
Presumably, if you're a defender, you want to be described as the best defender at the club. Is that something they can work on and eventually get to a stage where they want to be?
Yeah, I mean, look, the defenders are frustrated. Of course they are. Robbie Cundy the other night lost his man, and Robbie's a good defender, but he's playing at a level now that he's not played at before. So it's I think it's an illustration that the higher that you go, that the problems become slightly more difficult. And Robbie is. I'm delighted he's back, and he's a good defender in many circumstances. But of course, the higher you go, the probability of your opponents being able to convert chances in the penalty box becomes higher. So it's like that in the Championship, and it's certainly like that when you move up into the Premier League. You'll get punished by. You might make one mistake and it might cost you dearly, and that's about conversion rates, and that's where, going back to our own strike force, have done exceptionally well to convert the number of chances that we've created. Our lack of creativity at the start of the season was a concern for us. We've addressed that, and we've started scoring more goals, but unfortunately we've shipped far too many goals, and that's something that both in the short term but the longer term will need addressing.
And how have you assessed Andy in the last two games playing at right wing back?
Yeah, Andy does what Andy needs to do for the team, and that's fantastic for us. He's our top scorer, and he even managed to pop up with a winner at the weekend. So. And he had a great chance at the back post in the first half on Tuesday night too. So his performances, wherever you play him, will be, I can almost guarantee you that he'll be one of our best performers on any given day, just because of his output in terms of work rate and desire to do a job for the team, whatever that job is.
And West Brom have found a bit of form under Steve Bruce. I think he found it they're going tough at first, but they come to Ashton Gate unbeaten in 3. What test will they bring on Saturday compared to maybe other teams you've faced of late?
Well, there'll be a big test for us from set plays. Absolutely. I mean, they battered us at their place. Physically, we weren't able to match them. We lost Nathan Baker relatively early in the game with a really bad concussion. We had players who were out of form who, had a really tough day. But strangely enough, when they opened the scoring, we scored immediately, and we felt very aggrieved that was disallowed. But there you go. It was a mixture of us not being good enough on the day, and didn't get breaks as well. So, we need to perform better than we did against them at their place. Absolutely.
And when you're facing a team who are, as you said, good at set pieces, then you'd hope the players take on that challenge and prove that they can handle the situation.
There's two things. Firstly, don't give them away needlessly, which we were sloppy at the other night. And when you got to defend them, you got to defend it with a real commitment. And whichever system we adopt against them, you can only be successful if everybody's firstly switched on, concentrating and committed to it, and are prepared to physically, be resilient.
Go well on Saturday.
Cheers, thanks.
Hi, Nigel.
Hi, Rich. You okay?
Hi. Yeah, I'm all right, thank you.
Good.
Going back to Chris Martin, he's
Yeah.
the second most minutes behind Vyman for City this season. I mean, as a senior player, how much of a testament is that to him and the way that he looks after himself?
Well, he works very hard. I think for him, he's the last time I came across him when I was managed at Derby, and Chris was a player there. He's, in terms of where he's at now, and physically, he's a much better athlete, if you like. He's very self-aware of what he needs to do. And look, here's the other thing. He knows what he is. He knows what he's good at and what he's not good at. But he's still, I think he gets people, he runs the channels like a player who is a different build to him. He does a very good job for us. And so I've been pleased with his contribution, both in terms of his goal return. He's currently on 9, I think. But he's been, last week we went through a process of looking at all the goals that we've conceded and all the goals that we've scored, and Chris is central to lots of what we do create in a creative sense. So, it sometimes is worth reminding yourself of what players' value is to the team, and so, regardless of how other people see players, I think what's important for us as staff to do is recognise who are the reliable performers and who need maybe to be rested from time to time, because the demands on players in terms of, and I've spoken about this before, that we've got a number of players within our squad where this is their first championship season, so maybe my expectations of players sometimes has a slightly different view to how other people might see it. That doesn't mean it doesn't cause frustration, but it's we need players with know-how to be in and amongst our young players to allow the young players to be able to play.
And you talked about reliable players, and I wanted to get a word on Jay De Silva, because he seems to be one of the players that's playing consistently well, no matter what kind of position he's in at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Jay's been asked to play positions which I think are fairly natural to him. That's either full back or wing back. We have considered him as somebody in midfield because he's a good footballer and he manages the ball well. But I think in terms of where he's played recently, either at right wing back, left wing back, right back, left back, he's tactically astute and he's in good form. So I mean that's I'm pleased for him because he's he had a difficult time before Christmas, where he was struggling to sometimes get in the squad, and he's worked hard to get back in, and since he's been back in, his level of performance has remained consistently good. So that really, it pleases me when players are able to respond to the challenge, and he's done that.
Is there an injury update on Thomas Callas? Because I noticed he was involved by the Czech squad.
No.
For the internationals. I just wondering how serious it is.
No, he needs time to recover, basically. So it's an overuse injury, essentially. And so when players, I think I explained last week that when you're dealing with international players who have played, continually for maybe 2-3 years without a significant break, psychologically that can be quite a big hurdle to get over. But I think when you're quite a physical player like Thomas is, the wear and tear side of it certainly comes into play. And to be fair, he's played through quite a bit of pain and discomfort for a while. It was the same last season. So he's not somebody that moans too much. So I just think that every player gets to almost like a saturation point, and I think, to be fair to Thomas as well, it's good to give him the opportunity to recover. That's not to say that we're not exactly overflowing with options, but I still think for him, for his own well-being and his form level as well, I think it's important to give him the chance to fully recover from this situation.
So I'm guessing that the international break has come at a kind of, always coming at a good time for him to kind of recuperate his body.
Who knows? I hope so. It would be good to have him available again, but I just sort of get on with it. I don't overthink. Players are either available or they're not, and if they're not available, we'll find a different way of coping. So it's simple as that for me. But hopefully he'll be ready to return after the international break. But if he needs another week or so, he needs another week or so. I mean, it's just, can't rush it. We're not going to rush something that actually needs a bit of time to heal. That's the thing.
Sure. And is there an update on O'Dowda? We haven't heard much from him.
No, not really. No, he'll be back in the time frame that I probably said he would be. I don't know what that was. I can't remember. Probably 6 to 8 weeks. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know how many weeks it's been now. But when there's an update, I'll tell you. I mean, there's no secrets. I'm not trying to be evasive, but he's making good progress. I'm working hard, so hopefully we'll see him again before too long. Let's wait and see.
After the Barnsley game, you spoke about how the sides kind of gave the ball away a bit too often and kind of struggled in possession a bit. Does that? I mean, you said it came down to concentration, but is there more to it in the fact that there could be a lack of confidence in the side, or?
Yeah, well, if it is, it is. I mean, is that a question, statement? I mean, if it is a lack of confidence, they have to find a way of playing through it. Simple as that. They're going to be playing. The players who are, you can't rest everybody because they're having a bit of a fragile time. Players in their careers will look back at the times that they've struggled and actually go, yeah, that was an important time for me because I learned how to deal with it. And that's not to say that we don't help. Of course we do. But again, I've said it lots of times about not spoon-feeding people. You find out whether players are ultimately good enough or not. And sometimes it's to do with technical issues, but not really. The ones who go on and make it at whatever level are able to deal with the demands of the game at the level that they play at. And so I'm sure you've seen plenty of players over the years who are pretty good players and then fall off the face of the earth because they don't deal with it. So we had a tough end to last year, and the players who are still here now remind themselves of that, and that's why they don't want to go through that again. And yeah, we all have challenges in our own field of work, don't we? And it's, what do? Turn your back on it, or do you fight through it? So you've got to find a way through it, and we have a better chance of doing it collectively. And that's why it's important that the players continue to accept the challenge, and they'll find the solutions at some point, or they'll be able to. This is why it's really interesting for some of our young players who are not the most experienced, but we look to them sometimes for a performance when other players aren't able to deliver, and that shows you something about their ability, because ability is technical, of course it is, but it's greater than that.
In that case, how important is it to kind of play the last 8 games without kind of a fear factor, I guess?
Of course it is. It depends on, some people are motivated by the fear of failure. You may be that yourself. You may know people who the fear of failure is a motivator. Fear as an inhibitor is a nightmare. We don't want that. And you've got to understand that working with a team, there will be differences. Players are different. Some players can deal with a really heavy challenge, and some struggle with it. And so what's important is that we at least try to set us up as a team where it not masks but allows people to be themselves within it. That sounds a bit flowery, but it is about, whatever system we decide to play, we need the team to perform, because we're not good enough at the moment to just wing it with players going off on a tangent. We need everybody to be on the same page.
After obviously the Chris Martin news, is there any other update on the kind of players' contracts who are either out of contract this summer or approaching?
No, not really. You got any news for me?
No.
Okay. Well, you might have. I don't know. You speculate on stuff, don't you? So, have you got a few stories for me? I don't listen. I don't. No. There's nothing of note that you need to be updated on at the moment. The players who are out of contract will hear it from me first, not somewhere else. But when there is any news, we'll give it you. It's as simple as that. But I suppose if you're alluding to players that there might be a bit of speculation over, there's nothing to update you on, really. Yeah. Okay.
And I wanted to ask if Pat Mountain was still the goalkeeper, but as mentioned before, as a goalkeeper coach and a set piece coach, is that still the case?
He's a goalkeeping coach.
I'm
not aware of any other. I'm not aware of anything else. Pat's our goalkeeping coach.
But I was under the impression that he was combining the goalkeeper coach and the set piece coaching in there.
It's news to me.
Part of his role.
News to me. Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. But
I'll have to ask him when I come out of here. What's your job title? Because as far as I'm concerned, he's the goalkeeping coach.
Is there plans to kind of get a specialist or another specialist set piece coach in to training?
No. The idea is to either get the players that we have here to execute them better, or we might need to change players.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, I know where you're going with this, or I think I know where you're going with it. People always want somebody to point a finger at, and you're not ever going to get that from me where I'm going to start singling people out. I'm the manager here, and I take full responsibility for everything. And so, if you want to ask me a blunt question, ask me a blunt question. But the bottom line is this, that whatever we do on a match day is something that I'm a we person. It's not a I and me, it's a we and us. And so when things aren't going well, I'm happy to shoulder the responsibility, and the players and staff are all under, it's not about control, but I'm responsible for that. So let's just be clear about that, so that you at least know how to frame those questions in the future. Where, if things don't go well on a match day, that's my responsibility. How I deal with that internally is a different thing. But it's certainly not a case of going down the route of trying to apportion blame, let's put it like that.
Cheers, Nigel.
That's okay. It's okay, as long as it clarifies that,
Hi, Nigel.
How you doing? You okay? Yeah.
I'm good. We touched on it at the start, but Andy Wyman at right back. A few players have been trying
Right
to
wing back.
Right wing back. You did say a few weeks back when we suggested about Callas perhaps playing there, but you said perhaps it could be a shorter stopgap. Perhaps is right wing back a long-term solution for Wyman?
What, for somebody that doesn't like playing with three at the back? Not really. I like to have a few adaptable players within the squad so that we can play different formations. I'm not really a big. I've never really enjoyed playing five at the back too much. I played in that position myself as a player. Played in a three and a 3 and a 4 at the back. It's about playing a system that suits the players that we currently have, and the way that we're playing at the moment suits the players that we've got available. It's really quite straightforward. But in terms of how we recruit players who are defensive wide players, so you can get out and out wing backs, but I think we need to have some established, knowledgeable defenders. So whether those be wide players, wide defenders, or not. It's when people ask me about that, it's nice to have full backs who can play wing back, and nice to have wingers who can play at wing back, and nice to have full backs who can play as wingers. So but the position remains wide, doesn't it? And that's the key to that. So, for instance, I've not been asked a question about George Tanner today because I think people have been put off by that in the past. George is a player that I think, given time, will be able to play at full back or wing back. So, and that's the key. That's the key to it. But I've never been one for just saying, look, this is how I want to play, and then play players in a position they're not particularly good at. Although we've had to experiment a few times this year, and sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't worked, it's failed. But that's more to do with the balance of the squad as much as anything. So moving forward, it would be nice to have full-backs who can defend and stop crosses, and wing-backs who can defend and stop crosses, but can also give us something going forward too.
Thank you. And I know he started on Tuesday, Hanno Masengo, but he was a substitute in 2 games before that.
Yeah.
Was there a reason why he's pulled out the side? Was it perhaps
because the other players were playing better?
So with that, was that a case that he was a bit out of form and he's going through a rough patch again, would you feel, or?
No, that's your judgment. You asked me why other players were playing ahead of him. It's because they were ahead of him, and that's quite straightforward. But Noah had an opportunity the other night and probably will again at the weekend. So it's up to him to take it. It's when you've got more players than the actual positions, the places for them in the team, then it becomes who are the best players for the job. Simple as that. And I don't try and put it any other way. The players need to understand that there's got to be a competitive edge. So there's only 2 places and 4 players for the 2 places. Then I'll play the 2 that I think are the best players. Simple as that. Or the job that the team needs.